It's now recording.
Okay, great. All right. Well, Rob, I appreciate that you offered to speak to me earlier this morning, and I thought since we had this call scheduled at your request that we'd include the conversation that I wanted to speak to Craig and you about at the top of this call.
Perfect. Yeah, that works.
Okay. We do have up to 1 hour scheduled. However, I have another commitment. I won't be on for the full hour, but Kelly and John will be.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I wanted to address is the conversation that you had with John last Friday. And just say a little bit about where you're at with the application process, and including for Kelly, and to remind me where you got to with John, including the concern you might have about the application process.
Okay, so we have the login information for BC. I just got all the login information for Alberta. So in those sense, we should be able to go quite quickly with Alberta once I log in. When we log into the BC site, it requests to select which type of vendor you are. I shared a screenshot with John. I'm not sure if you've seen that, where it just kind of selects which, are you safety? Are you trained? Are you certified? And so then you select one based on the options. And talking with John, there was an option that we selected that it then asks for you to put any certifications for training that that you guys would have to be certified or to be trainers, and then the course outcomes and outline for the course to get approval for it. So that's the whole up, is making sure that we have whatever BC designated as being the certification to be legally training as under their guise of training for the funding application process, as well as the outcome, which was part of what we were going to talk about today anyway, was the outcomes and the outlines for the course. So it's good that it's rolled up into one conversation, but that's just where we're at with the grant. So really just kind of seeing, trying to decide what that means to be, what are those legal requirements? Do you meet them? And then B, where else can we go from there? So yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, good. All right, well, we can definitely get you the outcomes and the course outlines. That's not a problem. We can do that within the next 2 to 3 business days. Not a problem.
Yeah.
I heard you say there's an application process for Alberta too. However, I was of the understanding that for this one, the first one, you were going to have everyone that's headquartered in Vancouver's head office. Or do you have participants coming from Alberta as well?
Yeah, we have about 6 participants from Alberta.
Oh, great.
So given that we've talked, given your experience, it sounds like you've done that one before, and that's an easier, streamlined experience. So the other thing to just consider with Earls is that each of our stores is considered its own business. Like each has a separate license and registration number. So all of our regional directors, which is who we're likely working with this one, are considered head office employees.
Oh.
And then each store, the general manager is licensed under that store. So I essentially will have to go through for each store, submit a new application for each. But once we have the system down pat, it should just be a matter of getting the information in there and sending it down, right? So.
Okay, that's very useful.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very useful. Well, we have had, as we told Craig, I think you were on that call too, Rob, we've had years of people applying. We say a little bit to them, but then we have to step back because for obvious reasons, I see that we step back and let the vendor do the entire application process.
Yeah.
We've never had anyone in Alberta decline. So if in terms of priority, if you want to prioritize those 6, given
perfect. Yeah, we're aligned on that. I have an hour scheduled after this call to wrap up any actions that we have from this call. So the Albertan applications will be on there.
Okay, great. And then my suggestion that I had for you and Craig was, I know that Andrew Martin, the Senior VP of HR at Joey, has had success with government grant applications on their side for many years, even not including us. And I think I'd recommend if you or Craig reach out to him, you might find, some shortcuts or get some counsel that could help us in even how we frame ourselves for the application process.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
You see any concerns about that or?
No, I mean, at this level, they should all be talking to each other. And I know his predecessor, Joe, who I know you talked with, had a strong relationship with Andrew. So, and if not, I can always just reach out. I don't have any issues with that. So,
All right.
yeah, so I can reach out. One of us can reach out to Andrew and just see what he says. So, your pieces, because they've had some experience in this, have they applied through grants for you guys, like through you in the past? No, but in general, they've done training grants. Okay.
And I think, and you may not quote me on this, but I think that sorry, I had a call. I think that they have somebody that used to work there that now works on the other side of the application process.
Mm-hmm.
Has given them, anyway, you definitely want to speak to Andrew.
Cool. I actually have a coffee date catch up with Catherine actually on Wednesday. So I'll reach out to her right now and after this meeting and just ask her. I think more the holdup with that, or like what we need from you is the certification. Like, are you folks certified to train? Is there, Kelly, do you hold the certification from any form, or John or Brian, do you guys have that, or is that something? Because what it's asking is just for upload a picture of whatever certification you hold. So.
Yeah, I and Kelly, feel free to jump in. I have a master's of business from a university, St. Mary's University in Halifax. In terms of if they're looking for, are we certified by the teachers accreditation union, local, we don't have anything like in that domain. However, in our particular discipline, we are licensed and certified. So I'd have to think through, because we've not had this request before, I'd have to think through how we can actually write that up in a way that will facilitate the application process. But the bottom line is, I'm sure we can come up with something.
Well, I think what they're asking for, and because this fits within my realm of instruction and teaching and training, is that it's like the distinction between being a dietitian and a nutritionist, right? So to be a nutritionist, you have to have certain requirements from university. You have to write an exam. You have to demonstrate proficiency in a skill, and then that gets you designated the nutritionist. The dietitian could be anyone who's just taken a class and wants to talk about it. So I guess I'm not sure if it's going to be as easy as kind of like moving some stuff around for this case with BC, because it does seem like they're a bit more stringent with what they call workforce trainer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can talk internally. Kelly, you have anything to add right now?
Well, if I recall, remember you said that you weren't including me in that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, given Kelly's, however, I thought maybe you might have something historically when you've had something like this, but.
I've never had to deal with it before,
okay.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I can have a conversation with Gina, because Gina may have something, she may have dealt with something like this through one of the states at some point in time, and technical may be the certification body or something, who knows. I can have that conversation.
We'll look internally, Rob, and that's
okay.
That. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and then just the other thing with so Alberta wouldn't be a problem, because we know that's, I'm guessing, given your experience, is that it's going to be straightforward. They're less stringent with what that's called. And then with BC, we can look at figuring what that could look like. So.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else before I jump off from you, Rob? Anything else?
No, I'm excited that we're working with you guys. I think this is going to be so great for our organization and our people, and excited to talk to these guys about the course outcomes and what that looks like. And there's going to be more conversations along the way, but our team is so, I've been selling this. It hasn't been a hard sell, but it's been this has been one of the most impactful leadership courses I've ever taken. You need to be there. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
That's great. That's great to hear. We are too. Actually, before I jump off, I am interested. Craig brought up the last time that you had been leading it internally.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say a little bit about, has that come up internally?
Oh.
How?
Kelly, were you gonna ask a question with that, or no? I thought I heard something. Internally, so in the past they've taken the 6-day workshop and condensed it into a 2-day course. Part of the agreement for them to be able to do that was they weren't allowed or able to do any coaching. All they did was essentially read the slides, and that was it. So of course, with that, you're missing a whole bunch of key moments that really produce that ontological shift that happens. I read through it. I've been through ours, and just the one that I did with you folks was, it just different, completely, like not even night and day. Just like we're talking totally different experiences. Yeah, same content, but not really at the same time. So, I mean, for that, and I think part of the reason I've been arguing with Craig, we don't argue, but like I argued very strongly for us to be able to go with you was was the fact that this is your linguistic domain. This is the area that you live. This is the piece. And I think we spoke about that, Kelly and Brian, when you visited us at head office around, it makes sense. This is what you live in. And to have the people that are experts to do it is what will produce the change and produce the results. And also just free people from their limitations. So yeah, I'd say it was being a leader, light.
Okay.
You know, like the light version of the light version. And yeah, I'll also kind of let you know that there is some anxiety around it, specifically around the way that it was presented or led in the past. It was led specifically closer by Craig and Eric in a way that was like very similar to a landmark style, that if you're late, you get reamed out for it. If you're not in integrity, you're kind of shamed, and those pieces, which I didn't find you guys brought at all. So I'll just let you know that that's part of what the zeitgeist of being a leader was remembered as. And we've worked very hard to remove the ethical and moral standards around integrity. So, or interpretation of integrity. Yeah. That's
priceless, you sharing that insight with us, those kinds of insights.
Yeah. I think I'm glad it helps, because it is part of what I observed when I came on board.
Yeah, great.
It's good, Rob, because, you know, we are looking at, you know, what is the listening that we're speaking into, given that it's been in the environment, and there's been an impact that it's been in the environment in the way in which it has been. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And there, you know, that listening will be there. That listening and that comparison to what they know. I think, you know, having the people that we had go through it, like, so Christina, well, you know, mostly Alec, we had, you know, all of us who went through it, Mike, we were able to, like, I mean, Christina particularly, because she's essentially, you know, one of Craig's, I want to say daughters, but that's the wrong word, but, you know, Craig has, like, brought her along, and she's developed with Craig, so that she's been on his side the whole time, and it was very much against some things, but by the end of it was like, no, these guys, like, Craig holds no stand to, you know, how powerful you and your team were able to produce the course. So it'll be really interesting. I think I'm really excited to see some of those paradigms begin to break or shatter as we go through it. Yeah.
Awesome. Great, Rob. Cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, all right. You're welcome.
Okay, well, I have some other transformational program to lead in a few hours, so I'm going to sign off.
Well, may the force be with you. Have fun.
Bye, guys.
Brian.
I'll watch the rest of this recording, Rob, so I'll be fully up to speed, okay?
Excellent. All right. We'll talk to you soon, Brian.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, just us girls here, hey? And John.
Yeah, I think we've got this. I think my internet is back, stabilized again.
Awesome.
Not that I moved, but it just is.
So. Well, I get that. Sometimes it can just be a quick, too much bandwidth going through on the computer, right? So.
Yeah, and I'm in an office building, so I'm, you know, using someone else's wireless, so I have no control, so I'm at their whim. But it seems good right now, so that's great. I'm happy about that.
Awesome.
Well, I have some questions for you, Rob.
Excellent. Let's get into it.
Okay. Okay. And John will probably have a lot of questions too. So, you know, it's distinct that we're doing the program because we're doing it just for you, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a lot that can get accomplished out of how we're listening and with what it is that you're up to that can exist in our listening as we're leading the program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was clear to me the second. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when you did that with me. Yeah, when we did our program, you were listening for things and you picked that out. Yes. So what's your question?
So it's given that
Yeah.
it'll be great for us to actually look at, and we'd like to know more about what are you up to at Earl's. You know, let's get an overall picture, because we can create whatever outcomes we want to create. But the outcomes will really be from us having these conversations and getting more in your world. You know, I mean, we can say things like communication tools, you know, for leadership, or how to deal with challenging situations, and, you know, an actionable pathway to productivity. You know, we can say different things like that. But I think it would be better for us to really look at what's in your overall plan. And
Right.
And then there's what you had shared with me and Brian, where you were showing us your values and all of that. So I like to get the whole world and look.
Well, the great question is where to start. So let's start with the values and the overarching purposes, and then I'll kind of drizzle down in terms of like what are some of the more strategic things that we're up to, and then what are some of the things that I'm observing being more of an ongoing undercurrent, we might say, for what's around us. So our overall purpose is to make life awesome. Now, for the context of what this is that was released last year, of like this understanding of what our purpose is going to be. They made the declaration that we wanted to be a purpose-driven organization. The purpose is to make life awesome. This isn't something that they did research. This was something that was established before I arrived, but was rolled out when I arrived. So I'm kind of new and kind of like sense where it landed and where it doesn't land. It lands in that people get excited for that to be the case, but then when they look internally, they go, well, my life is not awesome. So therefore, how can we be making life awesome? Some of the vibrations we will, or some of the struggles we see, are around pay, around fairness, in terms of promotion and moving forward. I'm also really hoping, by the way, that this is likely going to be more confidential, that this is my observation, that I really trust that you're not going to go to Craig and say, this is exactly what Rob said, unless you've seen it other places. So
no, and we don't, the way we work, Rob, we don't actually work that way. What we do is we have confidential conversations, okay? And we count on that people will be in communication with who they need to be in communication with.
Yes, yeah. And so, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the way that shows up is just the make life awesome is that it's there, but it's like it's not remembered in some ways. So I would say there's a piece of like wanting to that, and then you're getting a bit of word vomit here. This is going to be fun for you to dissect and look at. It is what I've observed is that it's a very short-term planning place where we plan for the next year, not the next 5 or 10 years. So with that in mind, we have this purpose in making life awesome, and we also have a vision of being the most loved, best run restaurant in North America. And where our focus goes for this is being in the best run avenue of it. We try and think of ourselves as creating experiences. And what I've noticed is we look at how do we make things more efficient, more cost effective, and really more, the bottom line is a big concern overall everywhere. What else is there?
What does that look like? What does that look like when you say it's an overall concern?
It shows up in a number of places. So managers, and this is, speaking to what you guys are, who you're going to be speaking to, managers and head chefs and regional directors and everyone they're essentially bonused by how much they're able to not only produce for the business, but also save for the bottom line. So their bonus and their overall income is structured in a way that incentivizes mass savings. With that, you see this kind of like this countercurrent of like, this is what we say we want to do, and then this is what we actually do because it's what the behaviors we're incentivizing. I don't think that's unique to any organization. I know that's probably a common thing, but this is what I've observed. We do hold to our values very strongly. So integrity is a big piece. We're very great at beginning meetings on time, but ending meetings on time is another story. Authenticity, there's a belief in that being authentic is what produces great results. Purposeful. So this is an area where I'm kind of going, we're not too great on.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Yeah, please do, because otherwise it's going to be a train of thought.
When you say authenticity in your organization, do you mean being authentic about your inauthenticities?
I think that they would like to believe that. Yeah, I do think that there's a drive to be authentic about inauthenticities. And then there's so if anyone were to share a moment, if I was talking to Mo or Craig or any of the VPs or any of the directors, if someone were to say, hey, you're being inauthentic about your inauthenticities, there would be, and generally from what I have noticed, is there's a moment of reflection of where someone does go inside and say, hey, you might be right. So there is a drive to want to be there. There's a fear about holding someone accountable to that, or there's the word I want to say is calling someone out when they're being inauthentic to their inauthenticity. Mm-hmm. So there's a belief that we can do it. And I have witnessed it on multiple occasions where it's absolutely wonderful when it happens, but there's also a fear around holding someone to that piece. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I can speak from I with that too, because I have that same fear in different places. So that's where that shows up for me. Where else? Purposeful is a value. Execution is a big focus for us this year. So part of what we've observed, so execution is the theme for a lot of areas for our business, is that we've nailed different areas of the business, whether it comes to pricing structure or food costing, but our execution on quality may be lacking in different areas. So whether it's how do you, putting out a steak that's of highly executed to the standard that we set, or executing on a phenomenal guest experience during a rush. So you will hear execution come up quite a bit around something that we're focused on. That's an example of authenticity is that we talk about operations being very good at executing, but then we also talk about them as being, that's the biggest area for improvement for the business right now. So it's a place that they live.
And why is it the biggest area?
It's what the directors and executives have identified as being the place that we need to focus on to meet our goals or our targets to grow the business.
Okay.
What else? Any other questions to kind of get me going with this? What else is happening right now?
So, do you have anything, John?
No, not really, Kelly. It's interesting to hear it from Rob's perspective. That's all. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, tell me more. Tell me what you're hearing, because I mean, part of what this can be for me is a bit of a reflection for me. Like, what are you sensing or hearing when you hear me share this?
I'll have more questions myself, but go ahead, John.
No, I think it's just interesting because when you ask what the outcomes are, and as Kelly said, we can design and work towards specific outcomes. That's what we do with a lot of our programs. But it doesn't sound like there's a lot of clarity around that. And so I think what Kelly's doing is just working with you to refine it so we can get a clearer and clearer and clearer picture of where you're struggling, what you're aiming for, what you're trying to accomplish.
I think so. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it back to that. Because I think the underlying piece that I see is needed with a program like this is really a concurrent language for the culture that allows us to have authentic conversations about inauthenticities that are grounded in possibility and are safe. So there's a piece around ensuring that we all have the same language, because the way it's been currently led, if being a leader, is the 2-day intensive by people who don't have the same, I know that you explained it in the course, around the same understandings about the exact words. So we're using the words. I mean, so example, being on the court, the way that we experienced it during being a leader for us is a completely different way in which we speak about it in a day-to-day manner at our roles. So when I think about one of the greater outcomes is being able to consistently communicate with one another using the same language or shared understanding of that language.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell us what's different.
On the court usually is used to mean more about it's an experience. So get on the court generally will mean share from your experience or get your hands in there and get dirty with it. Whereas when we talk about it as being from my understanding of it is that it's being in the court really means to less, it's more about a reflective experience about being on the court. The piece when we talked about it being a leader was get on the court with it, meaning you're in it, feel it, see it, sense it, what's happening right now, versus don't describe it from a third person objective experience. Mm-hmm. So what I'm seeing with being on the court as an example, people will say, I'm just going to get on the court in it, meaning I'm actually just going to go do it for someone else. Mm. So, getting on the court means taking over and doing something to get the results or the job done, not actively live the experience and see it from that perspective. Yeah. I hope I nailed that one. Did I pass?
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me that one of the things that might show up in this listening is confusion.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in some of our debrief conversations with the team, that was part of the conversations we were having, specifically around Christina Hawkshaw and Jen, around just this is the language, this is a different interpretation of what we've always learned or what we've talked about. So, so the other one that's different and unique is the confusion that might show up is being an action by a cause greater than oneself. I know that that's been tweaked probably since it first got rolled out, or what my sense is that it is. Whereas my belief, that one is about, being given a purpose and kind of being out here with the purpose, not believing that this bigger purpose is just going to do it for you. Whereas the second version is generally what people mean when they talk about a cause greater than oneself. That it means that I'm committed to a bigger purpose, getting everyone on my side, which there's going to be confusion. There's going to be cleaning up of that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Well, and yeah, so that's really good. That's really good. One of the things that I do hear is, we have, and what we're creating is kind of like a life after the leadership program. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think I had mentioned this to you, this you and me business model, mm-hmm. that really the people who work with us are people who work inside a you and me business model, mm-hmm. which you could say is a purpose-driven kind of organization. But what they're concerned for is they're not organized just around shareholder profit. They're actually concerned for what's of fundamental interest and importance to the employees, mm-hmm. and to their customer and their impact on the community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we've been creating in that is core distinctions that are critical to that kind of environment.
Yeah.
So leadership program is a great opening of that world. And then there's exactly what you're pointing to. It's like, we say integrity is important. We say being purposeful is important. We say authenticity is important. But when it comes to being accountable for that environment and those distinctions in that conversation, there's something missing there.
Yeah.
So we distinguish accountability and the honor of exactly what you're speaking about, the honor and privilege of me holding you to account for who you say you are, because I take your word seriously. So it's a whole, there's this whole other piece to it.
Is there? I mean, like, I just love talking to you guys, you Brian and John. Like, I get so excited when we talk, because I go like, man, this is the world that like lights me up. And I think about like, what I found was missing after being a leader was that next phase, right? That next, what I would assume would happen in the self-expression and leadership piece from Landmark. And I, don't want to always be there, but that piece around, as a community, how are we holding ourselves accountable to the things, to our special projects as an example, and using that as being a piece to kind of help ingrain that distinction a little bit deeper and for a longer period of time. I guess what I'm asking, or my request, is that, like, I want that to show up here. I want us to be able to either coach each other or to hold the space for one another, to hold each other accountable to the distinctions that we're making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's good. I got so much going on right now. So one of the things about the leadership initiative is we don't manage the leadership initiative. Mm-hmm. But I think in an organization, if we put people in groups, and you would say who those groups are, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think if we put people in groups, and in those groups, they were sharing their leadership initiatives, but it was being managed in the groups in some way. And, we have, with the integrity of what we offer, we must offer it as it's designed. Mm-hmm. We don't have any leeway in the 6 days of the program itself. Mm-hmm. But between the programs, right, there's the calls that we're doing, there's other conversations and different things you could do, which, we can work in partnership, with you.
Oh, I would love that. I mean, one of the things, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, go continue.
That's great, because we actually have a breakthrough project methodology that it's too much with the leadership program, but it's definitely, a great, either if people during the program, they designed their program or however we wanted to do it, and then from there went into the breakthrough project methodology in having the milestones and that type of thing with the groups. We could also bring in these other critical distinctions.
Yeah,
it's too much with the leadership program itself, but we definitely can do that. And
so I'm going to share information to you that so Craig and I both believe that it's actually within the, I mean, I pitched it to Craig, but Craig also believes that it's within the project that we're going to see the organization itself transform. That the people use it, or the practice of the project, to build upon their own experience and shift their own paradigms. But it's in that project where the organization itself transforms. Mm-hmm. And I believe, and this is where I'm like hint, nudge, nudge, that this is where, like, I would see, and Craig also sees, the biggest value in what we're doing. So, I mean, I would like to pursue what that looks like. I mean, I've been thinking about, okay, well, if these guys can't, aren't doing it as part of what we're doing with them, what if we took it on as our own special aside and worked with the groups and began to, like, put together, like, some form of coach, group, or, some form of that in our own way. So I guess I'd love to explore more the possibility of your support with that, and I think that would probably mean working out a different type of contract with you, I assume, around how that goes. But there's massive interest in that from both my perspective as well as Craig.
Or something separate from it or something like that. But
yeah.
But definitely there. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, two things. One, this is the benefit of doing a private program for starters, because you can't have this conversation in a public program. There's no way to move past the program together. It doesn't work. And that's why we were advocating for a private program, because there's so much more that can be done. And some of the work that I'm doing with a client right now is we've done this transformational work. We do a different program. It's not called Being a Leader. We do Mastering Leadership, and it's done over months. And but inside of that, they've created their entire future for the organization for the year. It broken down into 60-day increments. They work in teams. I help coach them, and so that we keep them inside the language, inside integrity, and they're authentic about where they're breaking down, so they see their inauthenticities. And so we're, to your point, they're responsible for getting the work done inside the company. We're there to coach them to keep the language alive, so that they can see how it all works together, so that eventually it becomes muscle that they can use themselves. And it does require another piece for sure afterwards.
Yeah. I think it's continuous. And I think about, so one of the benefits currently of when our people do lead the current Being a Leader work is that they come back speaking the language again. So, ultimately what I can see working well for Earls is that if we did something similar, but where like the people who had previously gone through the experience of being a leader were then the coaches or the guides for whatever project or milestone. So they're teaching and learning at the same time. Okay, great. I got big eyes with that one. We're all aligned. It's like, we know this works. It works. Let's do it. Okay. So then, great.
And there's what John's pointing to is the consistency of the training and development. That's what's really key in it, because you're actually learning how to listen from the conversational domain. I have somebody who's really been into leadership programs. She has done it with me now 5 times. And I have her now, somebody will ask a question or something on the calls, and she'll volunteer. Kelly, can I talk to him? Right? Because because she's mastering it. She just loves it so much, and So, Well,
sign me up for that. I don't know what we need for that. Sign me up for that.
You're going to be in this one, right? Or are you?
Well, I wasn't going to, but now that I'm so excited about this, maybe I am in it. Maybe that's, I'm not listed as one of the 30, but I could speak with Craig about it. Part of it is that we wanted to make sure our people who haven't done it already can get through it. So,
well, maybe you're a back of the room guest or something.
I think because, or even more than in that. So I'm thinking, John, more than a back of the room guest. No, you're there so that while we're in those conversations, we can go back and forth and say, how can we utilize this? So you'll be looking at how we can get it ingrained in the community. And then we can go back and forth in that. Don't you think, John?
Yeah.
Because it'll be great for design.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right. I'm aligned. I'll put in the calendar. I'm there. Back of the room, listening from just a different lens.
Yeah. So what the leadership programs, they're the beginning of something for you guys, it sounds like to me, right? So it's really a revitalization or something of your culture, or getting everyone on the same page. It's I think it'd be good to look and see how you want to language that. And
well, I don't know how much Craig has shared with you. And so one of the reasons for this, what I wanted from our conversation, and I'll get the outcomes and the stuff, is that we want this program to be the top of our, this is the shining gem or the shining jewel on all of our leadership programs that we offer. So we'll offer a series of incremental programs that are aimed at helping someone distinguish their own stories, helping themselves understand how leading self is like the first cornerstone to like effective, influential leadership. And then as we kind of, and we'll introduce some of our values being integrity, authenticity, and, you know, those pieces. So there'll be like a small trickle down to it. So by the time they get to this one, they're, you know, nothing's new, but it's actually, well, it is new. Like it's seeing it again from a new lens, a fresh lens that's not Earl's, because everything right now is Earl's. And it's hearing that, no, this has validity outside of Earl's. And this is how the rest of the world can also operate, not just being within our culture. So I'm not sure if that was explained how we saw it moving forward, but
I haven't been in, this is my first conversation.
Okay. Well, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, does that work for you? Is that something that you think could work for us?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
and
good.
as you're talking, what I'm thinking of as it in design is that you can very purposefully do that when you are masterful in the contextual framework of linguistic abstractions and phenomenons and like that, because you can create your terms, right? And the world of those terms, and then have them be consistent with the leadership program.
Absolutely. Perfect. It's all working together really nicely.
Oh yeah.
I like, yeah. Okay. I feel lit up. I just said it. Is there any other questions that both of you have for moving into the program?
What are the outcomes that you and Craig would like to see from this leadership program?
The language being the number one, the consistent language. Number two, go ahead.
No, I think I better wait.
Okay. Well, number two, like I've already expressed the leadership project, right? So I think now I'm a big advocate for the leadership project not having to do, it doesn't have to do anything with Earls. I think that's naturally, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I don't want our people to feel forced to have to make it about Earls. So I'd like to see transformation through the leadership, like through the project itself, like that being a big piece of it, or at least an indicator of success that this has been grappled on. I've heard integrity being a big one for the organization around how do we know integrity is showing up for our people? Like how do we know that people are actually being in integrity? So there's, what I would say with that is that an outcome for me would people would be sharing inauthenticities about being inauthentic around integrity. I'm going to pause there because I think that's just what I'm sensing. Is there?
So I think as far as outcomes, a consistent language and approach to leadership throughout the organization.
Yeah. Clear.
Which I think for your paper or your certificate, whatever that is that you guys are doing, that could be a great outcome. Right? The consistent language and approach to leadership throughout the organization.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that the focus on the results, top line results, improvement in bottom line results through net savings, is a kind of a doing? It's very results focused, right? And a little less people focused, and yet on one side you're talking about being very people. You know, what was it? Make life awesome.
Yeah.
But don't spend too much money on it, kind of. You know, and so it occurs to me that there's something about creating that culture of possibility and leadership. You know, that, and we'll have to work through it over time here as we're thinking about it. But there's something, you said it before, about a cultural shift. And it's something around these people, you know, when you talk about being something bigger than yourself, it's not about a project. Just, you know, it's really about being about something bigger than yourself. And that's leadership, that's bringing other people up, that's mentoring, that's, you know, being concerned for others and their success and all that sort of stuff. And that to me would have life be awesome inside an organization. And I don't know if it's going down the wrong track, but it sounds like there's a bit of missing from what you said before in that area.
Yeah, there is definitely missing. And I think when you were about to say it, but didn't quite say it, when you said there's a lot of doingness, you know, we're concerned more about what we're doing and less concerned about who we're being. So I would say like an ideal outcome is that we have a clear focus on who we're being.
Great.
And I mean, like, I don't want people to define it, but I want it to be a question. Who are we being? That being part of the filter of when we make decisions. Yeah.
Have you done any company surveys?
Some. Are you looking for what type of survey are you wondering about?
Like people working there, like their, you know, best companies to work kind of thing.
Engagement or happiness?
Yeah.
We do quarterly happiness surveys, and we're about to implement daily happiness pulse checks. I don't have any results right now because it's been so sporadic, but we do surveys. Would you want to know what the questions are that we ask? Would that be beneficial? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you the questions. I do think we would be able to move the needle on those things with a course like this when people are concerned about what we're being, not with what we're doing. I'll send you those questions after this meeting. They really try and engage more along the lines of, I'll send you the questions. You can make an analysis from there.
Yeah. Okay. Because are you guys engaged in any of those, you know, best employer of the year and any of that kind of thing?
We have been in the past, and we're not so concerned about it in the present. I think there was a discovery a while ago that in order to be considered one, you actually have to pay X amount of dollars to be able to keep the title. And we weren't interested so much in paying those fees to be able to promote ourselves as the best place to work. Which I was, so there's actually no focus on it. There's no focus on being considered one of the best. There's more just a focus on, I mean, I'd like to say on being just who we're being, not on those other pieces, which, yeah.
So how do you measure awesome in your environment?
Yeah. I'm going to say we don't, or we measure it in everything that we measure. So I'm not going to say to you that we look at something and we go, are we being awesome now? Or have we made it? I think we allow our sales and our pulse check on our people to kind of help us gauge that. But what I mean, this is the authenticity about being inauthentic. Like we don't really talk about it ever. We don't talk about being awesome. We don't talk about how does that show up for us. It was talked about, but it's not brought up. I mean, I'm just going to compare it to my experience with Lululemon, where we always talked about our purpose, and that was elevating the world from mediocrity to greatness. That was everywhere, and everything we did, was an indication of that. So we don't talk about being awesome.
You don't have that distinguished at every role in the company.
No, we don't.
And what each person's contribution is towards that, because that's what gets people engaged. They know they're contributing towards this bigger picture.
Yeah. Now, so in the training, we do so specifically in the onboarding training, we do have them go through a reflective exercise about how their role contributes to being awesome. But I'd only say that's happening because I don't even know if it's currently happening. I mean, I designed the training, but that's where I have to. Is it happening? I'm not really sure. So the reflective questions are in there to provide that experience. And once it's done, it's done. I don't think it ever gets talked about again.
Oh, this feels so sad now.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see it because I know, having done these things many times in the past with companies I've run, that engagement surveys can be a double-edged sword, because if you do them, you get the results, and then you don't take action, people start to become disengaged by the activity of doing an engagement survey, which is really productive.
So the other thing to note is that compensation is tied to these happiness surveys. So managers and general managers and head chefs get bonus out on if they reach a certain level of happiness metric for their store. In HR, I don't love that, but that's just how it's always been when we came in, and that was a fight that I think Joe lost when he implemented when he was trying to work with the executive team. They're also compensated based on how many people they develop or train. So that could be one way that one listening that you're coming into. There's a big question around how do I get that point, so that extra bonus. There's no clear objective way for it apart from someone just saying, "Hey, this person helped me out." So I think also in that, as I talk this out, is that we're working within a very individualistic culture. Everything is about the me and what my results are, not what we've achieved together.
Okay.
Yeah, just observations.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Well, I think that, John brought up a really good point about that with making it or producing results, and which is important. But how do we have that be people's natural self-expression?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, as the learning person, I know that it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen after one training. It doesn't happen after one experience. So I think that's a good question to lean into. Like if I was you listening to what I've been saying, I would lean into that as being part of the place that I want our people to kind of start to question, like where are we with it, and who do I want to be with that, and how does that show up?
Yeah, and happiness is an emotional state that's actually caused by the brain. It's not, it's like,
mm-hmm.
It's kind of like an opinion.
It's an interesting thing to, like I can think of a lot of times where my emotional state was not happiness, but I was definitely fulfilled.
Yeah. And then part of what I don't know if they did the research in this is like, the whole field of positive psychology has defined what happiness is and what the metrics and what the domains are for it. But I don't think we did that work. I don't think that was considered for it. So, yeah.
Do you think people will have possibility and positivity collapsed?
No. I say no for me, but I've also been in the distinction for quite a bit longer than I think most others have. I would say yeah. For the majority of our people, they will have collapses too.
Mm-hmm.
So those who have done, the other work that we do is within Light Your Leadership, which is about goal setting and self-leadership. And part of it is possibility, is removing the constraints to a life that they want to live. Like what are the beliefs that they have around, needing X $1 million to do this thing. So I do think that some, but not all, will have made that distinction for themselves. It's not called out specifically in any of our other areas though.
Okay. And in the 2-day that was done, how many of these people will have been in that 2-day leadership program?
Let's look at the list.
And I'm curious what distinctions were in the 2 days.
Well, so what I can do is I can send you this, the slide deck is the best thing that I have on that. So I can send you the slide deck and that'll be exactly what they go over. So you'll see it. But it's nothing, yeah.
Because it would be good for us to know, like what they've been introduced to, what they haven't, all of that. Okay, good.
So I'm going to say about 90% of those in this program have done the 2-day. Some have done it multiple times, and about 10% have actually taught it.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question on that? When you were mentioning it, one of the things you said was that inside your agreement, you weren't allowed to do any coaching. You could just, read the slides. Was that an agreement with the people from being a leader, or who's that? When you said that you had an agreement about that, what was that?
Okay, now this is my asterisk to that. This is it would have been one of those chains that I've heard it from someone who told me that, who told me that who heard it from someone else.
Yeah.
So I don't know so I heard that from Joe, and Joe's no longer here, right? So he can't help me get clarity on it. But what I had heard was part of, basically the only thing that we were allowed was to just read the slides and provide some clarity, but no distinctive reflective exercise in the way that we did. And who gave us that permission? Whoever we were working with before who allowed us who had the licensing for Canada before. I don't know who that was, or do you know who I'm talking about? Like, do you know?
No, but it's something we'll sort out, just because we have to make sure that we're inside integrity ourselves, because, people aren't allowed to just take the information and use it however they want to. You've got to have a license, blah, blah. We just want to make sure that we're clear, that everything's good, that we don't find out that our license has been compromised by coming into a circumstance where there's something that's not quite working the way it should. We just want to help you and work with you to make sure we're all good.
Well, you had previous knowledge that we were working with another company, right? That had worked with us on this. Like
Vic, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Kelly's shaking her head, but Vic is the only name that comes to mind when I'm talking about this stuff. And again, like, I'm just speaking to you as if, like, this is just what I know. I don't know the facts. It's just what I've heard.
Sure. No, that's okay.
Anything else. Yeah.
No, it's no huge deal. It's just some understanding we need to have in the whole process.
Well, John, I was actually really concerned about it too, because I knew it was proprietary information. Like, it was licensed, and so I asked, and I was told that yes, we have an agreement with Vic, I guess, that said we could do it this way, but we couldn't do it with coaching or anything else related to it. We could just share what was on the screen.
Well, and some of you were involved with the program as delivered by Werner way back, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it could come from something with those. I mean, who knows, right?
Could have, yeah. It could have just been a handshake deal type of thing way back when. I have no idea, but it's one of the reasons I'm so freaking excited that you guys are here.
Yeah, well, we are too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that is showing up is that there has been some lack of integrity in some way. And which it'll all get cleaned up with us being there, So, and, not that there's anything wrong or anything, it's like, oh, okay, great. This is, we can sense these kinds of things too, right? So it's, one of the things that we'll do is we'll get it all cleaned up. We'll get it all flat, because we want to have the work that we're doing make the kind of difference that we're there to make, right? Not be an extension of the past and what people have been at, but a whole new possibility of being a leader and the effective exercise of leadership. So
yeah, and I think my gut and my experience with you folks is that will happen regardless of. It's just, you guys are good at what you do. Good job.
Okay, great.
Right.
So what should we do about these outcomes? Should we have Brian and John and I go back, and then you think a little bit more about what you see, or?
Yeah, I mean, I go back. John, can you or Kelly, can you just maybe, when you email me the outcomes for the course outline for the grant piece, can you just include what parts of what we talked about here, and then even some aspects of what you guys have, like, from this conversation thought about. I'm going to align with Craig just on like, hey, what are the things that you expected to get from it? And I'll send that to you later tomorrow after I talk to him.
And then we'll just work back and forth on it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. exactly. And now knowing that this is going to be the top of our leadership curriculum, that's just kind of what we're looking for, right? Is that like, we want this to be the experience that people come away with and go, yep, this was the shit, right? So.
Yeah, I think there's a thing to look at here too, and there's an outcome for the organization that will be accomplished in part by being a leader and in part by other things.
Yeah.
And so there are outcomes from being a leader, but then there's the outcomes as an organization that being a leader will be part of.
Exactly. And so as I'm looking at the entire curriculum, right? So not just the curriculum for like being a leader, but our entire curriculum where it shows up everywhere. That's my work for this year. So I'm good with it being messy for now. And as we go back and forth on it, I think it's just going to get clearer and clearer as we continue talking.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And so now you can see how critical it is that you are there in the program, so that, yeah. Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think every time one goes through these things, there's a new distinction. So
Yeah.
Well, there's something that's there for me too, Robin. I think that we'll have to create your participation, because you won't, because it's not who you are, but you don't want to show up there as the supervisor watching and judging and assessing, right? But to be more participatory, and that there might be some back and forth flow, conversation, questions, whatever, So we'll have to design your participation, I think, to make it, give you the most benefit for it.
Cool. I'm so excited. This is rad.
Okay, we'll talk to Brian. I'm sure Brian or John will get right back to you. Yeah, John?
Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they'll be in communication with you, and then, we'll be doing a lot of this back and forth, I think, Rob, and
I think so too.
creating. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you guys. Bye.
You're awesome. Bye.